There's nothing so fascinating within the field of archaeology as discoveries that have been made recently. The archaeologists who made the discoveries are still excited by them, and new information about the finds is still coming to light. Fortunately, we are never short of stories about new archaeological finds. There's always something incredible to tell you, and so we are always able to make fantastic and fascinating videos like this one. Enjoy! We're starting off in a strange place, and we mean that quite literally. In July 2021, archaeologists were surprised to discover this mysterious bottle of blue liquid wedged between the legs of a female skeleton in Hull, England. The bottle, still tightly sealed, is stamped with the words Hull Infirmary. Based on what archaeologists know about this site, human bodies were buried here between 1783 and 1861. That gives the experts a fairly wide window of time to investigate as they search for answers. It wasn't unusual for people of the 18th and 19th centuries to be buried with keepsakes and personal items, but it's hard to imagine why this person would develop such an attachment to a water bottle from the local hospital. The deliberate placement of the bottle between her legs must also be significant. The contents of the bottle have been analyzed, but scientists can't work out if the liquid is urine or some sort of medical tonic. Burying someone with a bottle of urine seems strange, but then why bury someone with medicine if they're already dead? It's no secret that human beings have lived in the Jordan Valley for thousands of years, but the age of this discovery might surprise you. In July 2021, archaeologists confirmed the discovery of a Natufian village that was built and settled in the region more than 12,000 years ago. It's in Wadi Ein Gev, not far west of the Sea of Galilee. The remains of the small village are spread across an area of roughly 4,000 square feet. After identifying the site, archaeologists carried out exploratory digs and recovered flint, stone, and bone tools, along with human burials. There also seems to be some evidence of deliberate cultivation of livestock, with animal bones found close together. There's evidence of Neolithic and Paleolithic practices within the village, suggesting that it was founded during the very early years of Paleolithic hunter-gatherers settling down and creating agricultural communities. Curiously, some of the artifacts recovered from the village appear to be artistic in nature, including animal figurines. It seems that once our ancient ancestors settled in villages and towns, they turned their minds to creative arts. Stonehenge in Wiltshire, England, is the most famous ancient stone circle in Europe, but it's not the only one. Almost every European country has a Stonehenge-like site of its own. Here's the Ukrainian answer to Stonehenge, just outside the village of Novoalexandrivka in Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. Archaeologists say that the stone kurgan is around 5,500 years old. That dates it to the Bronze Age and makes it older than the famous Great Pyramid of Giza. Archaeologists in Ukraine are grateful that this ancient monument was still there for them to discover it at all. It's thought there were once thousands of sites like this in the country, but many of them were destroyed during the Soviet era by farmers clearing space for plowing and agriculture. What makes this kurgan especially unusual is the nature of the burials inside it, which show evidence of mummification. This is the first evidence of such a practice occurring during ancient times in Ukraine. Like the burials in Siberia we looked at moments ago, the bones of the deceased were painted with red ochre. What is it about our ancient ancestors and this particular shade? Most of us know that medieval knights went into battle wearing chainmail. We know that because that's how they're represented in pictures from the time. We rely on these ancient pictures as evidence because actual chainmail discoveries are rarer than you might imagine. That's why it's always big news for archaeologists when an authentic example is found, as was the case in Poland in July 2021. This rusty hunk of chainmail was discovered on the banks of the River Odra by a historical research group called Association 515. It's obvious that spending centuries in muddy water has done damage to the armor. but experts are hopeful that it will clean up well enough to be put on display in a local museum once archaeologists have finished investigating and studying it. It's the only chainmail discovery to happen in Poland so far this century. The discovery happened entirely by accident. Association 515 was only in the area to research the history of the river Odra itself. Finding chainmail wasn't at the top of their priority list, but it was a welcome surprise. You don't have to be a professional archaeologist to make a noteworthy discovery. Amateurs armed with metal detectors get lucky just as often as the professionals do, as we can see here with this July 2021 discovery on the Isle of Man in the UK. It's effectively a Viking-era piggy bank, filled with silver coins minted 1,000 years ago. Rather than being stashed away and buried in one go, archaeologists suspect that the Vikings returned to this site several times to add more coins to the burial before covering it over again. The discovery was made by Kath Giles, an Isle of Man resident who's both a metal detecting enthusiast and a former police officer. Her discovery includes 87 coins and a further 13 fragments of metal arm rings, which were probably used as an alternative form of currency known as hack silver. The majority of the coins were minted between the years 1000 and 1035. That's around 200 years after the Vikings first arrived on the Isle of Man, which became an important trading post for them and served as a connection between northwest England, east coast Ireland, and the western Scottish Isles. The discovery of a load of old fish bones doesn't sound like a fascinating archaeological find until you take a closer look at them. These fish bones have a lot to tell us about the diets of the ancient Judeans, and those diets were decidedly non-kosher. Consuming non-kosher fish, those that lack fins or scales, is expressly prohibited by Old Testament laws. But that doesn't seem to have concerned the ancient residents of Jerusalem. There are clear signs that these fish, which date from the late Bronze Age of 3,500 years ago, were used in meals. Fishbone discoveries from other Judean sites dating to the Persian era of around 2,400 years ago also appear to belong to fish that were eaten, so this apparent defiance of religious law continued for a long time. It's apparent that non-kosher fish were a big part of the Judean diet before they were made non-kosher, so the question becomes one of why they were banned in the first place. It seems the modern-day residents of the land are a lot more concerned about religious law than their ancient ancestors ever were. Was the tomb of Alexander the Great's mother found in July 2021? Experts and archaeologists still aren't 100% sure, but they think it's possible. Treasure hunters and archaeologists have been looking for the tomb of Olympias, the dictator's mother, for centuries. Now it seems that she might have been buried in a tomb that was first discovered in 1850, close to the archaeological site of Pydna in Greece. The theory comes from Athanasios Bintas, professor of Greek studies at Serbia's University of Nice. He points out that the 72-foot-long tomb, with its multiple chambers and ornate decorations, was clearly made for someone of great importance, and with an estimated age of 2,300 years, belongs to the right time for that person to have been Olympias. The tomb itself was opened by grave robbers hundreds of years ago, and so anything of value was taken. Unusually, the body seems to have been taken at the same time. That makes it extremely difficult to verify who the tomb was built for. There's also another fact to consider. Olympias was executed by a power-hungry Macedonian official called Cassander, and Cassander had no reason to afford her a lavish burial after killing her. This could be her tomb, but it's just as possible that she never had a tomb at all. When archaeologists opened a tomb inside the funerary complex in Merida, Spain in early 2021, they were puzzled by the presence of this scallop shell. The shell was surrounded by glassware, bone spindles, nails, and ceramic cups, suggesting it was a prized personal possession for the tomb's occupant. Archaeologists have found shells in graves before, but there was something odd about this one. It was full of a strange earthy brown substance that couldn't immediately be identified. Scientists at the University of Granada eventually got to the bottom of the mystery. They identified the substance as an ancient 1st century form of makeup. That means the scallop shell was a makeup case. Perhaps the archaeologists should have reached this conclusion earlier and without the assistance of scientists. The use of mollusk shells as makeup containers goes back much further in history than this. The earliest known examples are 4,500 years old and come from the Sumerian city of Ur. So these image-conscious Romans living in Spain were fairly late to the party. The makeup would originally have been pink, with a granite lacquer mixed with a rose madder to produce the shade. While we're in Spain, let's turn our attention to this ancient moat. It was discovered by students from the University of Alicante in December 2020 and is said to be 3,000 years old. That would make it the work of the ancient Phoenicians. It's a little surprising that the moat wasn't identified sooner. At 25 feet wide and 10 feet deep, it's very large and noticeable, and a Phoenician wall was identified in the same location years ago. The discovery was made in the town of Guardamar del Segura within the borders of a well-known archaeological site of Cabezo Pequeño del Estano. The Phoenicians who lived here 3,000 years ago were settlers in the area and were looked upon as foreign invaders by the natives. They probably created the moat, which was dug by hand, as a form of defense around their settlement. The quality of their work is such that the moat is still mostly intact, despite the passing of 30 centuries and the effects of earthquakes and quarrying work in the area. It's only the second Phoenician-built moat ever found in the Western Mediterranean, which probably says a lot about how important this settlement was to their civilization. Let's make it a Spanish hat trick. In March 2021, this amazing ancient Roman villa was unearthed in the Spanish town of Rusgen. The first sign of the existence of the villa was the uncovering of a stunning mosaic, which has been dated to the 1st century. As experts slowly excavated the mosaic and the area around it, they identified more and more pieces of the puzzle. Eventually, they unearthed the entire floor space of what would have been one of the largest properties in the area during the 4th century. The 1st century mosaic was likely the first part of the villa to be built, but it seems that successive owners expanded and added to the property for a further 3 centuries after the first building was erected. Based on the archaeological evidence available at the scene, it seems it remained occupied until the 5th century before becoming abandoned. By that point, it had a pottery oven, an olive oil mill, and even a small burial ground all on site. The area has now been declared an asset of cultural interest, and so will be protected for future generations. Nobody would ever deliberately leave something as valuable as this buried in the ground. It's an absolutely stunning Roman ring that was found in a field in Broxted, England in November 2019. The ring is inset with an amethyst and is thought to be around 1,600 years old. Sophie Flynn, an antique expert with knowledge of the period, says it would have been a prized possession for whoever owned it back then. The ring comes from the 4th century, the very end of the Roman era in Britain, and based on its size, either belonged to a woman or a child. It's of a style that was popular with Romano-British people but might have been imported from somewhere else in the Roman Empire, rather than being made locally. The circumstances in which it was lost will never be known, but it took a lucky amateur archaeologist with a metal detector working his way through farmers' land to find it again. The find was declared treasure by the state and will probably end up in a museum. You don't have to go outside to find treasure. If you're very lucky, you might find some in your own home. In April 2021, a woman in western Massachusetts, USA, hired Detective Keith Will of YouTube fame to see if there was any truth to an old family legend. She'd been told that her aunt and uncle had hidden a substantial amount of cash in their home after it was built in the 1950s, but nobody had ever been able to find it. The time had come for her to sell the house, but she wanted to know for sure that the money wasn't there before she said goodbye to it. Quite how nobody had found it before wasn't clear, but Keith managed to find it in under 1 hour using a metal detector and an endoscopic camera. It had been hidden in an old metal box under floorboards in the attic the whole time. When Keith opened the box in front of the amazed property owner, it was found to contain $46,000 in banknotes. He was paid a cut of the money as a finder's fee and also had a great story for his YouTube channel. Many people think that accidental finds are the best finds of all, and stories like this one are the reason why. In April 2021, a map maker stumbled across a Bronze Age treasure in a Swedish forest. Thomas Carlson was only in the forest because he was surveying it for his orienteering club. But he found a huge collection of treasure in the open forest floor, half concealed under some rocks. There are 50 items in Thomas's collection, including clothing pins, bracelets, and necklaces. The items are believed to be 2,500 years old. The ancient tribes in the region are known to have occasionally left goods like this behind as offerings, but such offerings were generally left in wetlands or rivers. To find one in a forest is very unusual. It's likely that they only came to the surface very recently, perhaps after being disturbed by animals. A wider search of the forest close to the town of Alingsås has now been ordered by local professional archaeologists. Based on the nature of the artifacts, they probably belonged to a woman, or perhaps several women, of high social status. British pirate Henry Every was one of the most notorious bandits of the high seas in history. Many of the treasures he looted have never been found, but there might be a connection between Every and a collection of silver coins found in New England, USA in April 2021. It's been suggested that the Arabian coins, mostly Yemeni coins minted in 1693, were spent in the American colonies by Every's fugitive pirate crews after they fled there immediately after attacking a Mughal treasure ship known as the Ganji Sawai. The ship was bringing Muslim pilgrims back from the Hajj at the time of the raid. It's considered to be one of the biggest maritime crimes in history, with coins and goods worth the equivalent of $130 million by today's standards, taken from the ship's passengers and crew. Most of them didn't live to tell the tale. The subsequent outrage prompted King William II of England to order the first international manhunt in history to find Every, but he was never caught. It was always said that he and his men quietly retired to America, and these coins might prove the story. Always pay close attention when there's a yard sale happening in your area. You can never be sure that the person selling goods knows the true value of whatever they're selling. This story from March 2021 is proof of that statement. An American man who wishes to remain anonymous bought this tiny but beautiful porcelain bowl at a yard sale in Connecticut for $35. He immediately suspected it was worth far more than he paid for it, so he took it to Sotheby's auction house. That's where he was told that his lucky yard sale find was a priceless 15th century relic of the Chinese Yongle period, made during the time of the Ming Dynasty. Its true value is likely to be somewhere between $300,000 and $500,000. Only 6 bowls of this kind are known to exist, and the other 5 are all held in museums. The Yongle court ordered duplicates of its porcelains to be buried or destroyed to prevent copying, so it's a miracle this one survived at all. The lucky buyer plans to cash in on his purchase, so it's headed to auction later in 2021. Archaeologists in Germany have often been puzzled by the discovery of bent swords buried in the mud of their home country. As of early 2021, they think they might finally understand why there are so many of them. The discovery of more than 150 Iron Age weapons on the side of Wilsenberg Mountain, many of which are bent swords, has persuaded historians that the country's Iron Age warriors deliberately bent the swords of their defeated enemies as a final insult after a battle. Aside from the swords, archaeologists also recorded spearheads, fragments of shields, horse riding gear, and belt hooks. It's the largest discovery of its kind ever to be found in the Sauerland region. The site on the mountainside was an Iron Age fort and would have been at its busiest around 2,300 years ago. Celtic warriors are also known to have bent their enemies' swords after battles. And although the people who occupied this fort weren't Celtic, they may have picked up on the tradition and taken it as their own. There's no sign of a battlefield in the area, so it seems the weapons were brought back to the fort to be bent, perhaps as part of a special ceremony. There's an auction house in Ireland that still isn't quite sure what happened when it sold an old Chinese vase in November last year. The Celadon jade vase went on sale at the auction in County Laos with a reserve of €800. By the time the auction was over, the 300-year-old artifact had sold for a total of €1.2 million. That's just under $1.5 million. The vase dates back to the time of Yongshang, the Qing dynasty's 5th emperor. Nobody knows how it found its way to Ireland in the first place, but it's understood that the winning bid came from China, so it's now gone back home. The seller understandably didn't wish to be named after they landed their windfall, but the auction house said they were speechless when they were told how much they'd made. The vase is undoubtedly a fine example of old Chinese ceramics, but unless the buyer knows something about it that the auction house doesn't, it can't be worth what was paid for it. When an archaeological discovery is made in Britain, it has to be reported to the relevant authorities. That means every archaeological discovery has a number. The official register reached a landmark milestone in July 2020, when the 1.5 millionth artifact was discovered, and it was a suitably impressive find to mark the occasion with. This is a 750-year-old seal used by Pope Innocent IV, who became pontiff in 1243. It was found by an amateur archaeologist using a metal detector in Shropshire, England, which has led historians to wonder how it got there. Their current theory is that the Pope was trying to obtain the support of King Henry III in his bid to claim Sicily, and sent the seal along with a messenger as proof of the authenticity of his message. A less exciting suggestion is that it was given as a token of thanks to a rich individual who made regular significant donations to the church. But seeing as how we don't know either way, let's choose to believe the first theory. The official register of discoveries only began in 1997, which says a lot about how often archaeological finds are made in the UK. We're going back in time for our next discovery, but it's worth the trip. This is the Chaus Theatre, so named because it was found in the village of Chaus in northern France in 1883. It's no longer in France, though. Today, you'll find it in the British Museum. The treasure hoard is a collection of Roman silver, most of which dates back to the 2nd and 3rd centuries. Most historians view it as the most elaborate and distinguished ancient table service sets ever to be found. The names Genialis and Cavarianus are inscribed on some of the silver plates, presumably identifying their owners. After all, if you owned a set like this, you wouldn't want it to be stolen. The only artifacts in the 39-item hoard that aren't silver are 5 small vessels and a bronze mirror coated in silver leaf. It's thought that the mirror comes from the toilet service, which would have been considered the height of sophistication at the time. One of the silver plates has an unsettling swastika symbol at its center, but back when it was made, it would have been a symbol of divinity and spirituality. Ancient graves are the most obvious place to go looking for treasure. Unfortunately, grave robbers and looters are just as aware of that as the rest of us are, which is why so many ancient graves have been stripped of all their goods long before experts arrive. There are always exceptions to that rule, though, such as this Bronze Age grave discovered in Cyprus in 2016 by a team of Sweden's University of Gothenburg. The 3,500-year-old grave was found close to the Bronze Age city of Hala Sultan Tekke. The tomb is really more of a series of pits, all of which are thought to belong to the same family. Next to the largest human-occupied pit is an offering pit, and in there, the Swedish archaeologists found a huge collection of treasure, including 140 unbroken ceramic vessels, gold beads, a golden diadem, stone scarabs, gemstones, and a bronze dagger. The artifacts come from far and wide. Some were made locally, but others must have been imported from Syria and Egypt. The paintings on the ceramics include images never seen before by historians, including women wearing contemporary Minoan clothing. In that respect, the discovery is as culturally important as it is financially valuable. Do you remember watching the movie Titanic when the ship started to sink and the band carried on playing? That wasn't something the writers of the film made up. It really happened. One of the musicians was Wallace Hartley, who lost his life when the ship sank in April 1912. When his body was recovered 2 weeks later, his precious violin was still strapped to it. That violin found its way to auction in 2013 and sold for an incredible $1.7 million. The story of the violin after 1912 is remarkable. Wallace's sister initially had it sent home to her in England, where she kept it until she passed away in 1939. In her will, she left it to the Salvation Army. Nobody's quite sure what the Salvation Army did with it, but it ended up in a music teacher's attic by 2006. The music teacher thought nothing of it, apart from the fact that it was an old violin. But her son took it to have it valued. The valuer thought they knew what they were looking at immediately, but having the find verified and authenticated was a process that took 7 years. When the music teacher sold it, she was told to expect a sale price of $100,000. When it went on to make 17 times that amount, she immediately retired from her job. In Zurich, Switzerland, archaeologists have discovered the ancient corpse of a Celtic woman buried in a hollowed-out tree trunk. The woman, believed to have died 2,200 years ago, was buried with great respect, adorned in fine clothes and jewelry. The Iron Age Celts were known to use tree coffins buried deep underground for their burials. The woman's remains were found in 2017, and analysis indicates she was around 40 years old when she died in 200 BCE. Her bones suggest she led a life of importance, likely avoiding manual labor. The analysis of her clothing revealed layers of fine sheep's wool, fur, and sheepskin, while her jewelry included bronze bracelets, a delicate belt, and a stunning necklace with amber and glass beads. The necklace featured a unique clasp known as a brooch, allowing her to attach blue and yellow beads. Interestingly, another Celtic man was buried nearby with a sword, shield, and lance, suggesting a possible connection between the two. The Celts, renowned for their ferocity, stretch from Britain to modern-day Turkey, and their practices continue to fascinate archaeologists because we still know so little about them, despite the abundance of burial sites we've found. In a recent and remarkable discovery, an enormous Roman mosaic has been unearthed in southern Turkey, showcasing the vast influence of the Roman Empire during its peak. The mosaic, found near the ancient city of Antiochia ad Kregum, once adorned the floor of a bath complex adjacent to a 25-foot-long open-air pool. Covering a staggering 1,600 square feet, the mosaic boasts intricate geometric patterns on a white background, including starburst designs and intertwined loops. Dating back to the 3rd or 4th century CE, the mosaic's remarkable preservation has astounded archaeologists. It contradicts the belief that southern Turkey was only peripherally impacted by the Roman Empire, revealing that Antiochia ad Kregum was significantly influenced by Roman culture. Excavations in the city have also unveiled a Roman temple from the 3rd century and a street lined with colonnades and shops. The first significant ancient Roman discovery made in the region came in 2002, after which they've barely stopped coming. Plans are underway to construct a protective shelter over the mosaic and open the site to the public for future visits. But there's still archaeological work to be done before that can happen. The tomb of Tutankhamun was famously found by Howard Carter in 1922, but the tomb of his wife wasn't found until 2017, if it was ever found at all. Scientists and archaeologists still can't be sure that the tomb that was found close to that of the pharaoh Ai that year is that of Tutankhamun's wife. But they're optimistic that they're right in their deductions, and that may be as close to a confirmation as we ever get. The king's wife was called Ankhesenamun, and aside from being Tutankhamun's wife, she was also his half-sister. Marrying within families wasn't as big a taboo back then as it is now. After Tutankhamun died, she was remarried to Ai, so it makes sense for her final resting place to be close to that of her second husband. Doubts about the veracity of the find stem from the fairly modest nature of the tomb, consisting of little more than 4 foundation deposits filled with pottery vessels and the remains of food. A king's wife is never likely to be buried with the same degree of ceremony as a king, but experts would still expect something a little grander than this.